Dennis Cranmer was a dwarf and stalwart captain of Prince Hereward's guards at one point in time. Geralt first met him just outside of the Temple of Melitele in Elendor. There, the dwarf was accompanied by Falwick and Taze, 2 members of the White Rose. Dennis was tasked with accompanying said lads and to ensure nothing bad happened to them, keen as he was to follow the rules and laws to the letter. Because Geralt had insulted said Taze, the knight demanded a duel. When Geralt started to question the demand of a duel, however, Falwick noted he would have to hang him if he refused at all. At this, Dennis interrupted, drawing the ire of Falwick instead, but the dwarf was wildly unimpressed by the knight's blustering. He urged Geralt to simply accept the duel, but in a rather strange way.
"Stand your ground with Taze, sir,"
Dennis Cranmer continued calmly.
"It'll be better that way. It's not a fight to the death, only until one of you is rendered helpless. So fight in the field, and let him render you helpless." "I beg your pardon?"
"Sir Taze is the prince's favourite," said Falwick,
smiling spitefully.
"If you touch him with your sabre during the fight, you mutant, you will be punished. Captain Cranmer will arrest you and take you to face His Highness to be punished. Those are his orders."
The dwarf didn't even glance at the knight. His cold, steel eyes did not leave Geralt. Geralt smiled nastily at this. He was forced to fight, but also forced to lose, because he'd get arrested otherwise. So, he mocked Falwick, who, of course, got angry again, and Geralt noted that these were not in fact his only choices. He could also simply butcher everyone around him. Dennis, however, reminded him that it'd be much like Blaviken, and he wouldn't want that on his conscience again, now would he? Something Dandelion mocked this time around, because Dennis Cranmer and his group of soldiers were, at this point, nothing more than common bandits to them. And anyway, the soldiers were already scared to death of the very thought of fighting a witcher, especially the Butcher of Blaviken. Their knees were positively shaking.
"I,"
said the dwarf calmly and pugnaciously,
"have nothing to reproach my knees with. I've never run away from anyone, and I'm not about to change my ways. I'm not married, don't know anything about any children, and I'd prefer not to bring my mother, a woman with whom I'm not very well acquainted, into this, but I will carry out the orders I've been given, to the letter, as always. Without calling on any feelings, I ask Geralt of Rivia to make a decision. I will accept whatever he decides, and will behave accordingly."
And so, Geralt agrees to the duel, slyly confirming with Dennis that this duel was purely between the Witcher and Taze. And so the duel began. Taze thinking this was going to be an easy win, of course. However, Geralt dodged his attacks gracefully and eventually knocked the knight's own sword straight back into his face by deflecting so hard it bounced right off. But when Falwick tried to have the guards arrest him for it, citing that the Witcher had attacked Taze, Dennis intervened.
"Stand still! To your places!"
growled Dennis Cranmer, touching his axe. The soldiers froze.
"No, Count,"
the dwarf said slowly.
"I always execute orders to the letter. The Witcher did not touch Taze. The kid hit himself with his own iron. His hard luck."
"His face is destroyed! He's disfigured for life!"
"Skin heals."
Dennis Cranmer fixed his steel eyes on the Witcher and bared his teeth.
"And the scar. For a knight, a scar is a commendable reminder, a reason for fame and glory, which the chapter so desired for him. A knight without a scar is a prick, not a knight. Ask him, Count, and you'll see that he's pleased."
Falwick was furious at the dwarf, of course, but Dennis wouldn't budge. In fact, he pulled out his axe and threatened Falwick with a right whooping if he didn't stop perjuring. After all, we can't start breaking laws in front of the soldiers, now can we? He did, however, agree that Geralt should probably get out of Elendor with some haste, and before the Witcher took that advice, Geralt sat Falwick down for a moment and made sure he recognized that if he or any other knight of the Order of the White Rose bothered either Nenneke or Dennis Cranmer over this nonsense, there'd be hell to pay. And he wouldn't care about his knightly vows or rules at that point. All in all, Dennis was quite pleased to have met the Witcher. The feeling was undoubtedly mutual. Dennis Cranmer eventually takes part in the Battle of Brenna as well, alongside several other dwarves from the Mahakam volunteer army. He also met with a boy named Jarre during his time in the war. Jarre, a young boy from Elendor who had run off from the Temple of Melitele, to join the army. As the dwarf was on good terms with Nenneke and knew the temple well, Dennis wasn't best pleased with the lad for doing a runner and considered sending him straight back home. But instead, he decided to be something of an army guide to him, even though he wasn't really a fan of volunteers, noting that they desert too often. He realized quickly enough that Yara was just here for the sake of Ciri, and he commended him for not talking about it with anyone who would listen. As they take a walk through the small camp, he explains a bit of army life to the lad before sending him on his way to join the PFI, the poor fucking infantry, rejecting Yara's request to join the Mahakam volunteer army with Dennis because he knew that non-humans would be sent off to the worst parts of battle, and he was not about to let the boy sacrifice himself like that. Dennis fought bravely in the war to come, although we've no idea if he survived it. I'd like to say we'll hope on the side of positivity and say that he did.
I'm sure you're not surprised, but we're not doing skits at the end cards today either. I am so sorry. My Patreons are getting titles today. I hope you appreciate those too. Walguy the Illustrious, Robertson the Enlightened, Lochmoine the Fierce, MJ Coolsta the Impressive, Septic the Catist, Mike Zweers the Unrelenting, Adrian Packle the Impeccable, Ray the Fortuitous, Freeman the Wise,